Good evening. I am Talibita Moses, and I'm happy to talk about yet another topic that will be very essential, especially the completion of your studies. I am speaking this because it's of good interest, especially to students. I teach international conventions for natural resources, international environment law, international wildlife law, and those for hotel and catering law. I enjoin you to love doing and equipping yourself in courses like this because I think it is in your best interest that you finish and pass your core subjects. And these, of course, are in my best interest. Now, the topic for which I am going to speak about is crucial because ultimately you want to be assessed. And now I want to take you through what amounts to an open book exam. Now, open book exam means different things in different situations, and it is your responsibility as a candidate or a student to make sure you know what you are and not allowed to access during the test. Your notes, textbook, or other books, the internet, friends, or your parent. Now, this, of course, comes over the heels that there was COVID, and COVID defined and introduced other subjects or interventions because there was need for social distancing, or there was also closure of schools, and then online interventions came in. But for us who have always been assessing lawyers or students who are doing legal subjects, this has been our core. And Nkumba University allows open book exam as a means of assessment as opposed to those who do closed book exams. Open book exams would mean that you are allowed to bring in certain materials into the exam. So you need to understand the format and the logistics of the exam in general. You need to know that if the exam is a multiple choice, problem solving, or essay based, you will also need to know how much time you have to complete the exam. Every instructor and exam, of course, is different. So it's important for you to check and look at the instructions carefully. Now, it's important. You just can't walk into an open book exam just because they said it's open, then you don't prepare or you don't read. So remember, open book does not mean that you do not need to prepare or study. This is even more important if your open book exam is timed, as is the case with ours, because open book exam requires you to use higher levels of thinking. You won't just be asked about facts to recall. Instead, you will be asked to compare, analyze, evaluate, or synthesize information. These ways of demonstrating your knowledge are more challenging than just spitting back facts and require that you deeply know the material and are able to see connections. It's important for you to organize the reference materials. There is such a thing as to too much when it comes to your reference material. The more you have, the more you need to look through to find what you need. So be selective in what you have available, and whatever you decide to use or bring as reference materials needs to be organized. You just don't have a stockpile of things. So organize your notes, though lots and lots of notes may help you feel more prepared. It may just be more to look through. Identify main themes and topics, summarize important information, organize notes by topic, identify how topics are connected, and many others. Now, Nkumba University will not allow you to bring in textbooks that you have written in, but it is important for you to use sticker cards so that they help you know which information is at where at. So it is important for you to also appreciate that there is a table of contents where you can quickly go to which work. It's also important for you to know who are the authors of which work you're bringing So it's important for you to know how to cite, for instance, the constitutional provisions, the sections of the parliamentary um, acts or legislations. It's also important for you to know the case citations. How are they best cited? What are the brief facts therein? What are the legal questions that took the two contenders to court, and how were the two resolved? And which is, of course, the conclusion of the judge. So prepare your materials, create indices or key topics, and identify where you can find more information on each of them. Bookmark important pages, stroke chapters, prepare a list of key information, stroke formulas, definitions, and the like. So it is important for you to have a case list to appreciate the different cases, different case citations, and also to organize the different legal resources. So during the exam, manage your time effectively. Just like any other exam, look over all the questions first before you begin answering. Once you've gotten a sense of all the questions, start by answering those you are familiar with, and then move on to the more difficult questions that require you to use reference material. Sometimes with open book exam, students may be tempted to keep adding information or to keep going back to check answers again and again, especially if you have a few days to take the exam. But in this case, you will only have 4 hours to do the same, contrary to when it was online. But this time around, you're going to sit in an exam, you'll be vigilated only and only for 4 hours. It is important not to over answer questions. Don't overdo it that you want to make a marking guide for the examiner, because time is essential, and collectively, one by one, I hope you are aware, makes a bundle. You should be thorough and accurate, but also concise. And your handwriting must also be legible. And do not overquote either. Your own analysis is critical. Don't make fat paragraphs. The examiner isn't interested in that. So don't forget, you still need to study. I think we've said this a few times already, but it's important. So we will say it again, and I will emphasize that it's important for you when you're doing an open book exam to be prepared. You must have read, you must have heard your lecture, you must then listen into, you must memorize, you must analyze, and most importantly, a constitution has articles. It's good for you to open quotations and quote it if you are quoting it verbatim. For instance, I don't expect a student who is doing environment, who is doing wildlife and natural resources to, for instance, forget that Article 39 of the Constitution of Uganda guarantees Ugandans, all the visitors, the right to a clean and healthy environment. Article 39 of Uganda's Constitution guarantees Ugandans the right to a clean and healthy environment. Section 11 and 12 of the Tobacco Control Act of 2015 as amended guarantees persons the right to a tobacco smoke-free environment. In the case of Asimwe versus Nema and Leaf Tobacco Limited, which factory was being accused by residents of Kireka for polluting the environment, and yet it had established itself in what is a residential area, and yet NEMA had abdicated its responsibility of ensuring that factories don't so establish themselves in places which have already been gazetted by, for instance, Kampala Capital City Authority or any local or urban authority as a residential area, because inevitably they would get exposed. The judge, having had arguments for and against tobacco leaf, concluded that tobacco leaf should vacate the residential area and go where it is or was issued for the license to operate, and that was in the industrial area. So in this case, I have given you an example of a constitutional provision, Article 39. I've also given you an example of an act that was made by Parliament, which is Section 11 of the Tobacco Control Act, which says persons have a right to enjoy themselves in environments that are tobacco free. This I have in fact paraphrased. I have not quoted it verbatim. So it is important for you to also know the actual names of the acts of parliament, if there are any regulations made thereat or thereafter. And it's also important for you to also know the actual names of the international conventions. For instance, the treaty that establishes the East African Community and its enabling protocols, the Common Markets Protocol, the Customs Union Protocol. These are a creature of a treaty which establishes the East African Community. So if you are quoting it, please quote it with its actual, and then go to the actual act and quote the necessary provision that you need. I hope those will, in a way, help you to appreciate how you will conduct your open book exam. And now when you go to textbooks, it's important for you, when you're quoting the textbook, to quote the author and the year of publication in the text or at the end of the paragraph. And then quote or paraphrase and say so, because in open book exams, we mark and do not give room for plagiarism. We allow accreditation or giving credit to authors. And it's important, if you're going to make any sweeping statement, it's important to qualify it. Or if you are making it as is, then it's important that you provide the authors' names, because they are helping you do that. But it's also important for you to not forget your analysis, because open book exam is not all about you quoting the law, quoting constitutional provisions, quoting international conventions, and not bringing in your analysis. It is important for you to analyze with the use of those different sources of law to help you market your argument. Don't forget to persuade. Don't forget to give examples of working projects, functional institutions, and also give credit to all those institutions. I will also let you know that in an open book exam, you will not be expected to copy from others, but rather from the work that you have prepared your exam for already. You will not be allowed to use work that is already handwritten in. You will not be allowed to bring handwritten notes, but rather treaties, acts of parliament, and textbooks. I say all this for God and my country. I owe you.